So welcome to week 2 of EDTECH537, Blogging in the Classroom. As you can see, most of these videos are being recorded in advance, although not necessarily all in one sitting. But know that I'm trying to get all of the content to you prior to the start of the course, so that way you can actually preview the entire course without actually any interruptions. So in an ideal world, what I would do is I would record the video for week 2 near the end of week 1, but because I know people are looking ahead a bit, seeing what's coming up and stuff like that, I want to make sure the content is available to you. So my goal is to have the videos, the introductory videos for all 8 weeks completed prior to the beginning of the course. So one of the things that means is that I can't sort of comment, at least in these introductory videos, on how the last week has progressed. So that's one of the disadvantages of doing these in advance. Although one of the advantages is that you have all of the material available to you right from the get-go. So even though I'm doing this probably a week before the class starts, welcome to week 2, and I'm glad that you're all still with us, although at this stage I really have no clue as to how many we've gained or lost during that first week. But for those of you that have stuck it out during week 1 and have got your blogs created and have completed that first entry, have your blog roll along the left or right hand side created, got your About Me page created, well done. You're well on your way to moving forward. Now this week, as we move forward, it's going to be a little bit different, particularly in terms of the readings. Now the first reading, I'll be honest with you, Harsh, and I think that's how you pronounce it, Harsh, 2003, is focused really upon blogging and blogging in the classroom, so that will kind of relate to it. And in all honesty, this, along with the 3 readings you did last week, will help you move towards that blogging in the classroom, or that letter that you've got to write to your administrator coming up in a little bit. So that should help you with respect to that. Now the next 3 readings actually are things that we're reading about now, and I include them at this point in the course because we're at the stage where I'm not requiring you to do specific types of blog entries, as we'll start to do. I think it's in week 4, although it may be in week 3. You'll see actually as we're coming up, but I believe it's in week 4. But in most instances, these 3 readings tend to, the Prensky and the Mackenzie and the Reeves reading, tend to elicit a response from folks. One or more of those readings will sort of speak to you, and ideally will give you something to talk about. And that's something that you could blog about if you want to. Now, we won't actually be using these in your blog entries until week 6. So week 6, when we look at the individual versus class blogs, and we look at sort of different structural ways of doing blogging, this is where this notion of generational differences, and particularly the issue of digital natives, will come into play at that stage. So if you don't have anything to say this week, or if you don't want to blog this week, that's perfectly acceptable. Posting an entry this week with your impressions on some of these readings are entirely optional, and that's true throughout the course. As we go through, I'm going to require certain types of entries each week as we start moving into the blogging, but that's just the minimal amount that's required. You can, if you desire, post a blog entry about your reflection on every single one of the readings you're doing. So you could, in theory, post 4 different entries this week, 1 on each of these 4 readings. Or you could post 1 entry that just reflects upon the collection of readings. Or, because it's not required, you don't have to post any blog entry about these particular readings at all this week. So, it's entirely up to you how you want to go about doing that. But again, the Harsh reading is looking again at that notion of sort of supplementing that academic, practical, reading aspect of, using blogs in the classroom. The Prensky, Mackenzie, and Reeves readings are things we're going to use later in the course, specifically in week 6, as a way of moving. Actually, it's going to be one of the 3 discussions that you participate in that particular week. So And if you want to blog about them now, that's entirely up to you. It's an optional kind of thing, but you will be specifically blogging about the issue of generational differences come week 6. So what you want to do this week is actually we're going to create some more accounts. So the first thing that I want you to do is create an RSS reader. And what an RSS reader does essentially is, instead of going out, and this is explained actually in the RSS in plain English blog that Lee Lefevre does, or that video, sorry, that Lee Lefevre does, and explains it quite well. But instead of, there's roughly 25 of you in this class, when you factor in my blogs as well. Instead of having to go to 25 individual blogs to see what everyone's saying, you can actually have all of those 25 blogs sent to you in a single RSS reader. Ideally, in addition to those 25 class blogs, you're going to have other blogs that are of interest to you based upon, whatever your personal interests are, either, based upon your personal context or your professional context. The other thing that I'd like you to create is I'd like you to create a FeedBurner account. Now, FeedBurner is actually now owned by Google. So if you have a Google account, you can actually just go in and add the FeedBurner aspect to it and then embed that into your blog. What that's going to allow you to do is it's going to allow you to essentially to bring in a lot more statistics than what the Blogger or the WordPress native stats features allow you to do. It also allows people to subscribe to your blog in a more user-friendly way. Like, I know I use WordPress, and while they can subscribe to my RSS feed with just the WordPress system, they can't get it in their email. They can't get it through other means, whereas with FeedBurner, they can actually subscribe via email. So I've set up a FeedBurner account for that. The other thing that you're going to create in terms of an account is you're going to create a Twitter account. Now, with all of the accounts you've created, and I'm sure you saw this with week 1, but as you created your blog in week 1, you would have posted the address for your blog in the discussion forum for the blog addresses. You'll note that I've got my own personal blog where I'm posting samples of things throughout. So if you've subscribed to that in your RSS reader, you'll see I post essentially, I'm doing all of the activities that you're required to do throughout the semester on my own blog to try to model those types of things. And I'll talk about that a little bit more either in week 3 or 4 when we start doing the blog entries. But what you want to do once you get your RSS reader created, and Feedly is the one I'm recommending that you use, although it's certainly not the only one out there, so you can feel free to use whichever one you feel like using. But you're going to go to that discussion forum that includes everyone's blog address, and you're going to essentially copy and paste each of the addresses into your Feedly or whatever your RSS reader is so that you can follow everyone's blog. Similarly, once you create a Twitter account, you're going to post your account name or your handle, if you will, into the discussion forum for the Twitter accounts. You'll note that mine is already there. MKBSHU is my Twitter handle. And once everyone starts posting their Twitter handles there, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to go in and follow everybody else's Twitter in there. So you're going to create those 3 accounts so that way we can sort of communicate and interact with each other in a much more coherent fashion throughout the semester, and it'll actually really save you a bit of time in terms of being able to do that, particularly with the RSS reader. So, as always, if you've got any questions, feel free to contact me. As always, email is the best way of getting a hold of me, although, you can try to catch me on Skype or call me as well, but email is the best way, and I look forward to seeing how things start to progress in this second week.